Hello and welcome to this episode of CatSci podcast. In our mission to bring you the latest in cat behavior, science, and training, we've actually decided to switch things up a bit. So over the next few episodes, we're going to be inviting leaders in the field to join us and to share their expertise. So today, we're joined by Trisha Seifried, also known as the original cat boss. Trish has been a professional animal trainer for the past 23 years. Trish really helps dispel this myth that cats can't be trained. She's trained cats for commercials and films, and she even began her own animal talent agency known as Pet-ential, which specializes in working with cats on set. So join us for this episode in which we'll learn more about Trish and her experiences with cat training.
Welcome, Trish. So, how did you get involved with professional animal training?
Hi, guys. Thanks so much for having me on. We're super excited to join. That's a great question. So, I first started in animal training in 1998. I was 18, going on 19, and my mom was encouraging me to audition for this new show at Six Flags, and it was the very first animal show that was coming to the park. And so I live like 5 minutes away from Six Flags. I was like, oh great, this is perfect. And so I was like, wait, I have to do an on stage audition. And I was like, oh no. And I almost kind of chickened out. And then she was like, no, you got this, you can do this, and she was like, this is right up your alley. It's with dogs and cats and parrots and reptiles and all kinds of and rats. We had rats in the show too. So the show was already established, and so basically I had to go and audition for to learn the stage part and then handle the animals and help train the animals on stage for the show. So it was called the Hollywood Animal Action Show, and so I did it. And so I auditioned, and they I didn't hear a call back, so I called them. So I was 19, and I was like, this is the right thing to do. You call them back to see if you got it. You're showing like enthusiasm about the position. So I called her back. Her name was Jennifer Hawes, and she was an animal trainer out of Texas. And she goes, you know what? I'm really sorry. The position has been filled, but you got it.
That's a great surprise.
Right. So I got the position. So immediately I started learning how to handle animals professionally. Even though I had animals my entire life, we always picked up strays and I always trained them like as a little kid. But that was my first professional job at Six Flags. So I did that for 2 years. We had high wire cats that would go A to B, hit levers, open doors, release dogs. We had this actually, it's called the chase scene, where a rat would run across the mantle and then a cat would come after him. And then another rat would come out and another cat would come out. But they all looked identical. So it looked like the same rat and cat, right? But anyway, so we had lots of different animals. We had hoop cats, trick dogs, chain sequence dogs, parrots that flew and did tricks and things like that on stage. So that was my very first experience with professional animal training. And then the producer that I was working for at that show, he was the producer for David Copperfield's tricks. So he did magic show tricks too, but also he had a partner, and within that partner of the business, his name was Joel Slavin. And those two guys split off, and Joel went to SeaWorld and Paul stayed at Six Flags. But basically what happened was, after 2 years of being at Six Flags, I then saw an in, and it was always my dream to work at SeaWorld. So I knew, the previous company, the partner for that company, like I said, split off and went to SeaWorld. And so he developed shows. I don't know if you guys ever have seen the shows at the animal shows at SeaWorld or Busch Gardens, Pet Shenanigans, Pets Ahoy, Pets Rule. So they're the largest domestic animal show in the world. And so we had dogs, cats, pigs, parrots, pigeons, rats, skunks, exotics, all kinds of different animals. So it was the #1 show at SeaWorld. So when I was about 19 going on 20, I got my first job at SeaWorld. So that's kind of where I started, and and I did that for 10 years.
Nice.
Yeah, so
That's
we
great.
had all rescue animals. So we had hundreds of rescue cats. I would go and adopt the cats and evaluate them for performance on stage, and it was sort of like a second chance at life. You know what I mean? So a lot of the times they were kill shelters. They weren't just just rescues or whatever. So we were saving cats and teaching them tricks and giving them a second chance at life. And dogs too. It was always the dogs that were super energetic that didn't, that everybody returned 3 and 4 times. It's like, oh, this is perfect dog for us. Like, you know, this dog has energy, could do lots of different cool stuff. So,
Sure, some stamina in there too.
yeah, right, exactly. Sorry if you guys hear my dogs and my parrot going off upstairs. They're
Oh, it adds to it. I love it.
Oh, it totally does.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. I was a good trainer and I did provide them with extracurricular activity. However, they seem to know whenever I'm on a call and they hear me, they're like, I want to join.
So at what point did you decide to break off and just focus on cats?
Had my first love with cat training from SeaWorld because we were doing so many cool things like upside down rope and weave cats. And this was 23 years ago. It was like all the tricks that you guys see me doing now, I've been doing for 23 years. It's like, um, but I think mostly the reason why I started with cats is because of the narrative that cats can't be trained. And that's pretty much why, I think, because no one else was doing it. And then because of the nature of what I do, and how I got involved with film work and commercial work, people were having such bad experiences with handling cats on set. And I kept hearing, you can't do that with a cat, you can't do this, you can't do. And I was like, well, wait a minute, yes you can. And let's show you. So really just to kind of reverse that narrative that cats couldn't be trained. And also, clients were just having a bad experience with animal trainers handling cats on set. And then this became a whole nother narrative that, oh, cats were hard to handle on set. And so that was kind of where I developed my mission. And the way I got involved with film work was after I moved back home from SeaWorld, I moved back home to St. Louis. There was a place called Purina Farms. Have you guys ever been there?
No.
Heard of it.
St. Louis. Okay. So it's like a subset of Purina because their headquarters are here. So there's a farm and it's a free farm. People can come and look at the barnyard animals and interact with those. And there's dog shows. And we have the largest animal arena dedicated just for dog shows. So like AKC shows and stuff. So there's a huge arena out there where, people flock from all over the country to come. So I worked there doing dog and cat shows, and I developed a show called the Pet Academy. And so you'll like that one, Dory. But it was ACATEMY.
Love
So
it even more.
The dogs and the cats and the pigs and the parrots in there. And so people loved the show. It was a comedy show. And Purina saw that and they were like, wait, can you train cats on set for us? I was like, yes, that's my dream. So I got my first job with CatSci, and they gave me a shot to do their big commercial for their big commercial, and then for their Catapedia website. So it was like all about cat training, all about proper handling of cats, behavior modification, behavior training, that kind of stuff, and little things like nail trims and crate training and things like that. So we did this whole photo shoot based on that. So that's kind of how I got involved with cat training on set. But that's really what solidified it there was, okay, there's a problem here. People think that cats can't do anything. So that was my mission. I'm kind of hard-headed like that. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to prove that.
I feel like all three of us in this group right now have all rallied against that cause.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So what's some of the different media over the, 23 years you've been doing this that you've worked for?
Yeah, so media, I've done a ton of television, like live, little live interviews and things like that, for with animals, regarding Got Potential, my animal talent business. But in terms of big brands and stuff, a lot of the big brands that we do, we work for every brand in Purina except for Fancy Feast, because that's the white cat, those cats come out of California. But so we work with every single Purina brand, Pro Plan, Friskies, Purina One, Cat Chow, Muse, a lot of the different ones. But also all the Hills advertisement, Science Diet. So we do all of their veterinarian diets, and we do all of their regular diets as well. So if you guys see any print or packaging, any kind of commercial work or any advertisements on social media, a lot of times that's our work that we do. So all the Science Diet stuff. And then Royal Canin, we handle animals for them too. If you guys have ever seen their black and white campaign, with the photography is beautiful. A lot of animals that you see there, we hire and work with on set. So yeah, so lots of different pet brands, but a lot of different like pet medical brands too. So all the Advantage, the Feline Advantage, Advantage Multi, Bayer, Merck, all of their advertisements, pet medical stuff. So it's not just pet food, it's pet medical. And like, do you guys have Ameren UE there? Ameren for electric?
No.
Oh, okay. So we have Ameren. So like we do things like we taught a cat to ride a Roomba, or that kind of stuff for the energy companies. So it's not always just pet food or pet medical stuff. It's just kind of fun brands too. We've done a lot of work for Amazon and just different stuff. So it keeps it interesting. It's not always the same thing.
So what is the craziest trick that you've ever trained cats to do?
Oh, crazy. Okay. So I have one cat. Okay, Kit Kat. Yeah, the Kit Kat. Here he is. Kit Kat. Probably the craziest. He's my jump rope cat. So if you guys have seen the social media stuff on Instagram or Facebook, as far as I know, he's the only jump rope cat in the world.
That's a hard one.
In terms of tricks, that's my craziest trick. In terms of media, what has been asked of me to do for commercial work was they asked me to train a cat to pee on something on command. Oh. And I was like, oh no. We're not doing that, but we can do this. So for a Nature's Miracle
I saw that one.
Did you? Okay. So I trained Famous to squat on command, and then they just sprayed the pee spot there, so it looked like in post that he was peeing there. But it actually turned out really good.
It looked legit.
Yeah, it looked legit. Yeah. So no, I trained him to squat, and then so that's probably the craziest thing that I've ever had to train media wise.
You're like, wait, I have to live with this guy afterwards. Yeah. I am not training him to pee on anything.
Exactly. They always want you to train the cats to open cabinets and pull on this and do this and do that. It's like, that's why my cats have a dedicated space, because if they come upstairs, I've already taught them to open cabinets, pull out drawers, get things from here and there. It's like, no, we need some sort of
baby proof.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had to baby proof my all of my bedroom doors because my dog Medley, she knows how to trigger the latch. And so I had to baby proof everything. So if you forget and turn around and don't lock that door, they're all everywhere. You know,
Oh,
like
jeez.
she likes to let the cats out. She thinks it's funny. I'm like, this is not funny.
Mayhem.
Yeah. So sometimes I'll come home and I'm like, hey guys. But yeah, those are the two that I would say that are probably the craziest.
Sure. I love it. I love the or the squat on command one. How
Yeah.
did you start training that? Did you use a litter box, or what steps went into that one?
I used a block. So he already knew a sit,
Sure.
but I used a 4x4 block, and then I had him put his feet on the opposite sides of the block. So I did a lot of time and awareness.
Sure.
To get those feet spread out, and then I basically did a sit. So I did a target with a sit, and then eventually faded out the block so that it looked like his feet were, really wide.
Sure. And that's really great because it also makes it a little bit more exaggerated too, to show up on camera a little bit more, I bet.
Yeah, it did. It looked super legit. When I
It
saw it, I was
did.
like, oh my God, yes. It worked. I wasn't exactly sure. I toiled with a couple of different things, but because it had to be on carpet, I had to use that block to get, I couldn't use a litter pan. I couldn't use anything else. So it was kind of like, I was limited, and they can't really take things out in post. Like if you put a block on a carpet, they can't just remove it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it was something I had to condition him and then fade out. And then, yeah. So
love it.
It only took, like 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half, something like that. Wasn't much, but he started getting the concept kind of right away. Oh, cool.
I love that you said that it only took 1.5, 2 weeks, because I think that when people think of training cats in general, that everything is this huge production and that it takes them so long to learn and that they don't learn as well as dogs. And I was spoiled by having Peach first, because she picks up on things just way too quickly. She's way ahead of me half the time. But she would learn start to finish a trick in, an easier trick than squatting in a couple sessions. And it's just fascinating to watch how on it they are. I think the bigger problem when training a cat is actually doing too many repetitions in a session, because they're like, I already get it. I know it. Why do I have to keep doing it? And so having them do multiple things in a session works really well for at least my cats.
Yeah, it doesn't take very long to capture tricks at all, or behaviors or whatever. Like you said, a lot of times it's just, that you see it in the second session. We always said our motto at SeaWorld was, what you train today, you'll see tomorrow. And that's, usually true.
I love that. I love that saying.
You see things right away. So,
sure.
But yeah, and it's like they want to please you. They want to, try really hard. And a lot of people will say like cats don't want to please you. They want to please themselves, but I don't really agree.
Sure.
They try.
They do try hard. I agree with you. They're definitely always thinking about the next thing.
Yeah. And I noticed like some of the things that and I don't know if you guys notice this too, but when cats are thinking, like if it looks like a cat is walking away from your training session and they're kind of walking in a circle, and they'll walk and they'll stretch it out, they'll stretch out their body, or they'll just make one pass. That's a cat thinking about what you're doing. It's them processing something. It's not that they're uninterested or getting bored or things like that. Sometimes they just walk away just to kind of process it, and then they come back and they do it better the next time,
Sure.
But
that's fascinating that you say that, because Peach is, kind of high intensity sometimes, and will work really hard at something. And through working with cats, I have realized that I have had to work really hard at not making the sessions go on too long, or push farther than I should in a session. And she'll definitely do that same thing. She'll walk away, and then I give her a moment, and then she comes back and she's like, all right, let's try it again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just their way of processing, things sometimes. It's like
Sure.
the little processor on our computer when it's sitting around. It's like,
Good.
wait a minute, I gotta put this together.
Sure.
Do you have a schedule you set with the cats? Like every day, do you wake up and do training, or how does that work?
I kind of split them up in groups. So like because I can't train everybody every day all the time. So I'll kind of assign different behaviors to each cat and then I'll train them in groups. So like I might train 5 cats in one day, or and then the next day. So we kind of do it like that just to kind of keep some level of, you know, management and sanity. So I can keep track of what I'm training.
Sure.
But I mean, I do train before I feed. So the meal is their jackpot reward. And I find that training in the morning and training at night are the best opportunities. So yeah, in terms of schedule, I'll probably train around 9 a.m. and then probably around 4:30 or 5. Mostly because they eat like around 6. So that's kind of when I feed. I wouldn't dare try to train a cat between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock.
Interesting.
I
Just
mean,
because they settle
yeah,
and they're sleepy?
yeah, yeah. They seem to settle down after that first meal, and so they're really kind of in that sleep pattern mode. Now, um, that's not to say that I wouldn't. That's just my schedule. So let's
Sure.
say my only opportunity was to train at between 1 and 3. I would feed them in a different time so that they would have more energy at that time. But in terms of my cats, like there's nothing happening between 1 and 3. And often for commercial work, that's kind of how I set my behaviors up too. So like if I need action oriented behaviors, I do those first thing in the morning or later in the evening before we wrap up. Any kind of laying down or sleepy cat or cat cuddled in a lap with a model. That's kind of what I do like between the hours of 1 and 3.
Mm.
So that's just kind of how their cycle is. So again, like if I could change that, but
Sure.
for right now, that's kind of how I do things like that. A lot of times, I'll train at night too, like right before they go to bed, like
Sure.
around 9 o'clock. That's kind of when I'm feeling like, oh, I gotta do something.
Yep.
If I can't train at night, what I do is I turn out the lights. I create all my cats. I turn out the lights and then I go and hide treats everywhere, all over the basement. So they see me doing it and they're like, please let me out of this right now. So I say, let's go hunting. And then, and I toss treats so that they can chase them and hunt them down too. But yeah, so that's their favorite like nighttime activity. If I can't
Sure.
train, then I place treats everywhere and I say, let's go hunting.
I love it.
So what makes a good cat for a set then? Like a certain personality, or what are you looking for?
I'm looking for an energetic cat that has a ton of toy drive, a ton of food drive, and that kind of just never really quits, doesn't get stressed out about anything. Just kind of that really dog-like cat that can go into any environment and just kind of check it out. If a cat can walk into a house or a set and, rub on things and think that it's cool, that's kind of the ideal cat. But there's a lot of things that you can do to manage, even if a cat doesn't have any experience and I have to hire them for whatever reason. There's a lot of things that you can do to actually to manage their environment, and so that we're being their advocate right on set. So I do a lot of visual management for cats on set, so that they're not looking at the big studio. They're not having to take in the big picture. So I kind of recreate a room where they can feel that they're in tight quarters and they don't have to look at the big rafters and the lights and all of that stuff. So a lot of visual management that we do on set, but also in terms of when we bring them out, what we're allowing them to see, what we're not allowing them to see, things like that. But also, yeah, so food and toy motivation are big key factors in working with cats on set. Also, what they're exposed to, like, how much the owners are exposing them at a really young age. If they're crate trained, if they don't just stay in the house all the time. They're able to go to PetSmart and, go to other people's houses to visit, go to nursing homes, that kind of thing, just to kind of get your cat out and explore. So, and go to cat shows. If people are taking their cats and exposing them at a young age to that, that's kind of an ideal cat that I would look for to work on set.
So then what advice would you give someone who has an older cat or they have a cat that's, especially nervous when they're in a new environment?
I would start small, start, in the home, start working on behaviors, and then start to branch out. So I typically like to train in the same spot every day until the cat knows the behavior, and then I start to proof it in other environments. So it's funny, like a behavior like a high five or watch me or look or a sit up or just engagement in that regard. You can take a behavior like look at me or high five. When you branch out into that new environment, that's an easy behavior that they can physically accomplish and feel confident about. So then it's about building confidence in the new environment, right? So like I wouldn't ask a crazy trick right at first if the cat wasn't used to that environment. I'm going to start small and go back to like the basics and let them do something easy. Let them feel confident in that environment first.
I will say also, it's going off of it being a good behavior to do out in public. I also find that these kind of easier trick behaviors are a perfect way to serve as a barometer for your cat's stress. So if you can ask your cat for a high five and they give it to you, they're in a place where they're able to focus and learn and maybe continue on with other things. But if they can't do it in that situation, it serves as a way to tell you, okay, maybe they're not, ready in that specific situation. And it's not one of those behaviors where if you were to say, ask for a recall in that situation and they don't come, that's like that's dangerous. But if they blow you off with the high five, or if they're in a place where their brain just can't focus in that moment, no harm, no foul.
I wrote a blog on the 5 signs that you might be missing with your cat. And I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but in terms of behavior management and things like that, if you're getting cats that are fearful over, in teaching them how to be in public and how to be confident. So we talk a lot about the signs that you might be missing in your cat. And so that's shaking off like a wet dog, stretching when they stretch out, when they sigh or yawn, things like that. Like you can actually capture those and mark those behaviors and teach your cat to be confident. So when you are teaching your cat to shake off, for instance, rewarding that shake off, like it's a healthy level of fear, right? So they're learning how to deal with a healthy level of stress. And when they're shaking off, you can reward that. When they're sighing and they go, yes, so you can reward that. A lot of time, like when a cat is stretching, they're stretching out anxiety. So if you guys look at what we do as humans, how do we get rid of stress? We yawn, we sigh, we shake it off, we stretch out with yoga, things like that. So if we're keeping a watchful eye on our cats and they're going through a scary moment, if you just wait it out, you'll see that cat shake. You'll see that cat sigh, or you'll see the cat stretch. So if you're waiting that out and then be ready to mark that, you can start to build confidence in your cat just by using their own body language.
really two main questions that I get from a lot of cat owners. One is, what rewards are you using for training? And the other is, how do you handle training when you own multiple cats? So, for example, when I try and train my cat Bo, everybody else will hear the clicker. Everyone else hears me praising Bo. They all come running. They all want treats. So sometimes I will train them all at once, but then, of course, your attention is divided. So then I'll separate them, and then you'll hear them crying from the other room because they want to be involved. So, how do you handle that, having so many cats that you're training?
No, that's right. Like when they all hear, the clicker, they know exactly when you're gonna start training because first they can smell the chicken in the microwave cooking.
Mhm.
So that tells you what treat I use for training. But I use chicken and then I use a wet food for like a jackpot, and a little bit of dry. But if I'm using treats to toss, I use chicken or dry treats to toss the treat away. So when I'm working on recall or just resetting a behavior, so a lot of times I just use chicken. But also I have to put my cats up in their crates. But I think it's a good opportunity for them to be away from each other anyway, and not always on top of each other and in each other's space. Sometimes cats like just like their own personal space, and so I think it's okay to do that. But also, it kind of creates a little bit of desire to want to train. So they sit there and watch they're sitting there and watching their brother or sister train. It's kind of like they could be learning something too through just watching. So
Mhm.
I don't mind them sitting in their crates while they're training. So um, some people do. I don't. I think it's an opportunity for them just to settle and have some quiet time alone.
And you also specifically carry or train all of your cats. So it's not just like we're, running around the house, catching them, scaring the crap out of them and then tossing them in a carrier that they hate because they only go to the vet. You've
Right.
clearly worked on this and they know that they can settle. So I would say for someone just starting, you need to go back and work on carrier training first because I
Yeah.
also use a carrier. If I put them in a room, they are scratching to get out, they're scratching at the door, they're like manically crying. I mean, and you'll hear that in some of my training videos because some are better than others at settling. Peach could be anywhere, it's fine, but Violet will ride. um but it's definitely something to be said to go back, work really nicely on getting a nice settle in a carrier.
Yeah.
I know Olivia from Clicker Kittens has done this with her two cats, where she has one in the carrier and is treating that cat in the carrier while she's working with her other cat on doing something more active. And she's really structuring a nice stay and settle even with the door open of that carrier while she's working with the other cat, and I think she does a really nice job at taking that to the next level too.
Yeah, that's right, and that's a good point because I was going to bring that up. And also an opportunity. If you have one, if you're working with two cats, you can teach your cat to stay on a mark, and then continue to reward that cat for a stay while the other cat's doing the other trick. So I sometimes do that too. It just depends on what trick I'm learning or teaching. Sorry, what trick I'm
Sure.
learning. Depends on what depends on what trick I'm teaching. If I need, if it's a very active trick and I can't keep my eyes on the cat that's working on a stay, then I might not do that. But something some more of a settle trick, then yeah, I can work two cats at once. But it's a good opportunity to work on another cat for sure.
Tori and I have talked about this on previous episodes that sometimes our cats will come up to us and it's seeming like they're asking us for training. Like my cat Bo will sit down in front of me and he'll like do his little stand that he knows and like look at me like, "All right, time to do some work." So do your cats do that, or is it just you have such a solid schedule that they know when training's coming and they don't have to ask for it?
No, they definitely ask for it. They definitely do. Especially my little Sphinx Bambino cat. He's doing that same thing. He's coming up to me and you're like, please chicken now. Thank you. I'm like, okay, Rogie. No, they definitely ask. They definitely ask for it for sure.
So we have a lot of people who listen to the podcast who might want to be training their cat. Now, they might not be training something as special as for media or film, but if they had to train one behavior, what would you suggest it be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for one behavior, I think just one. I think the most important behavior is probably a recall, a solid recall. And that's for a number of reasons. It's not just for training purposes, for teaching your cat to come when called for mealtime, but also teaching your cat a recall and going into their crate can actually help save their life. Because a lot of times when you see cats or something go wrong in the house or in an emergency situation, cats tend to run and hide. And that's the exact opposite of what we want them to do, right? So I always, share with people like how to teach your cat to be emergency, prepared. So no matter what sound, no matter what's going on, no matter what level of distraction, it's always important that they come to a recall. And so, God forbid that there's a fire or anything kind of emergency, you want your cat to respond to a recall, to go into their crate. Absolutely. So I think a recall is a good for not only trick training, but also just for emergency preparation. So that's probably what I would say. And, um, I really want to thank you guys for this interview because, we all believe in the same thing. And at Cat Boss TV, our mission is to change the way people see cats for the better. And if we change what we do to better them, then other people will follow too. So I think we kind of all share that mission and with our passion for cats and cat training, but also just changing the dynamic of what cats, showing people what cats are capable of doing and just how awesome they really are.
We'd really like to thank Trish for joining us today. To learn more about Trish and her work, visit her online at catbosstv.com and on Instagram at catboss.tv. Make sure to follow so you can stay up to date on really exciting projects coming from Trish.
This episode was brought to you by Mauai's Cat Behavior and Space Cat Academy. Visit us online at mauais.com and spacecatacademy.com.